Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 is currently airing this anime season, and so far it has been pretty great. And currently the anime has finished animating the hidden inventory arc. In this arc, we mainly focus on Gojo's past and many events that happened when he was also a student in Jujutsu High, and here we mainly focus about also another character as well, and that is Geto, one of the primary antagonists of this series. Now in Season 1 as well as during the movie Jujutsu Kaisen 0, we don't really have a lot of information about Geto and why he became the villain that he is now. Was he always like this, or did something happen in his past that resulted into being the person that he is now, a person who hates non-curse users and wants to create a world where only people who are able to use curses exist because he deems people who aren't curse users as monkeys. But why is that the case? Well, that will all be explained during the hidden inventory arc, where we get to see a Geto that is a complete opposite to the one that he is now, someone who was actually respectful and clearly had good intentions and was actually a good person, but due to a certain mission, more specifically due to a certain person's death, this will all completely change and Geto will become the villain that he is now. And that's what I'll be talking about in today's video, how a certain person's death could not only completely change Geto's personality, but his thinking as well of the world. So of course we have to start from the beginning. Like I mentioned earlier, Geto wasn't always a bad guy, he was actually a very good person, and this is clearly shown during the hidden inventory arc, where we come to find out that Geto used to also be a student in Jujutsu High. Not only did he have a very kind personality, but it's very clear that he had a very strong friend group that involved Gojo and Shoko, in which in just a few interactions you can quickly tell that they have the same chemistry as Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara. But more specifically, in just a few interactions we get to see just how much of a great friendship Gojo and Geto had. You can see the strong bond between them, and it almost seems that they're acting more like brothers than best friends, who seem to always have each other's back. However, this will all change when Gojo and Geto were assigned a mission to protect the Star Plasma Vessel, this being a character that goes by the name of Riko Amanine. The reason why they needed to protect this particular person is because she was going to be the next Star Plasma Vessel for Master Tengen. However, this wouldn't be easy because, as it turns out, there is groups of assassins that are trying to get Riko, so because of that it's Geto and Gojo's job to protect her at all costs. Now in this arc we not only learn more about Geto's personality, but we also learn more about Geto's ideals and beliefs that he originally had. You see, Geto was a curse user who believed that it was his duty to protect the weak, to protect the people who didn't know how to use curses, and he had a lot of moments in which he expressed these ideas. Now of course there were some characters like Gojo who had a very different kind of idea to this kind of thing, but even though they had different opinions and beliefs, they still respected each other's beliefs and opinions. And these moments were a huge deal because it just goes to show us that Geto wasn't always the villain that he was now. He was somebody who actually did want to help the weak people and wanted to help the people who weren't curse users, and never once in this past did he say anything negative about non-curse users. However, it was during this mission to protect Riko in which both Geto and Gojo experienced their biggest opponent yet, and that is Toji, somebody that was actually hired by a group known as the Star Religious Group, in which his job was to take down Riko. And even though characters like Gojo managed to put up a fight against Toji, ultimately Toji would show how much of a difficult opponent he is, because for a while he even managed to take down Gojo. And then towards the end of the arc, when Geto finally manages to protect Riko until the very end, he actually gives Riko two choices, in which it's either still to continue with the Star Plasma Vessel, or she could simply try and live a normal life. Of course, at first Riko is concerned because it seems that if they were to go with the other option, then people like Geto and Gojo would be in serious trouble with Jujutsu High. But Geto comforts her, saying that no matter what, he and Gojo already talked it out, and no matter what happens, they'll both find a way to get out of this whole situation. And just when it seems that Riko finally made her decision, sadly she is killed by none other than Toji, in which even after putting up a fight, Geto is defeated by Toji, and Toji takes Riko's body to the Star Religious Group. And while ultimately Gojo is able to get Riko's body back from that group, it still doesn't change the outcome, as sadly Riko is no longer in the world, meaning that basically they both failed at their mission to protect Riko. We then get a time skip to exactly 1 year later, in which it seems that things are getting back to normal. However, there is one particular person who clearly has had a biggest change, and that is Geto. It's very clear that Geto hasn't forgotten about Riko's death, and it's very clear that because of that, he's starts to have very different opinions about non-curse users, because they're the people who were primarily responsible for Riko's death. Something I forgot to mention is the fact that the Star Religious group is a group that the majority are non-curse users, and they're the people who were pretty much responsible for Riko's death, as they're the ones who once again hired Toji to take down Riko. And because of this is where Geto's viewpoints towards them starts to gradually change. The person who first thought that it was his duty to protect the weak, to protect non-cursed users, is quickly starting to question everything that he has done. Geto starts to question if everything that he did was all worth it, or if everything that he was doing had a meaning behind it, if non-cursed users are really the people that he should be protecting at all costs. This kind of thinking is really starting to get into Geto's head, but of course he's not at that level where he fully does think that all non-cursed users shouldn't exist. That is until he has his conversation with Yuki, another cursed user, in which we come to find out that one of her goals is to try to get rid of curses as a whole, and the only way to do that is if everyone was Jujutsu sorcerers and everybody knew how to manage their cursed energy. When Geto asked her if it's possible to just simply exterminate non-cursed users, Yuki said that it's possible, but she's not crazy enough to do that. But based on Geto's expressions in these moments, you can quickly see that this is going to be the beginning of Geto's ultimate plan and the beginning of his path as an antagonist. Afterwards, Geto is assigned another mission in which he goes to a village, and upon going to the village, he sees two girls who are curse users in a cage, and apparently they've been ridiculed and mistreated by the other villagers who are non-curse users. After seeing this, Geto finally decides to make his decision and decides to not only set the girls free but kill everybody in the entire village, resulting in him killing 112 residents of that village. Obviously, because of what he did, he will become a wanted man, but of course this will also result into many people who knew Geto to be in complete shock, more specifically his best friend Gojo. Gojo at first could not believe that Geto was somebody that will be responsible and will be somebody that will actually be able to commit such a horrible crime. But of course, afterwards, after his conversation with Geto, in which it will pretty much seem like the last time him and Geto would talk, it was very clear from Geto's talking points that he is very serious about creating a world that's only full of Jujutsu sorcerers, because he deems non-cursed users as monkeys, and he's very open about it, and he makes it very clear about his disgust of non-cursed users, and it's very clear that from now on he is going to make sure that every non-cursed user is eliminated. And this is how sadly Geto as a character will end. And I think it's a very tragic case of someone being good being turned evil due to a very traumatizing incident. It's very clear that Geto never got over Riko's death. Even though he didn't know Riko for a long time and only knew her because of the mission, it's very clear in just a short amount of time he really wanted to see Riko enjoy her life to the fullest. He didn't want to just simply see her as just another star plasma vessel. That is why he was so determined to pay the ultimate price if he let her go and enjoy her life, because he wanted to see her happy and have more happy moments in her life, as Riko's life wasn't very easy, and it was very clear that she also dealt with a lot of things in her life as well. But sadly, that will all be taken away by Toji, and even though Toji was the one that did kill Riko, it was made very clear that the main culprits was the Star Religious group. They're the ones who hired Toji to begin with. They're the ones who wanted to take down Riko in the first place. And this just clearly goes to show us how certain events and certain traumatizing situations in life can not only change someone's personality but just their viewpoints in life as a whole. And this was clearly shown with Geto. Geto wasn't always a bad person. He had good intentions, and it was very clear that he was somebody that wanted to help people out. But because of this whole situation, and because the non-cursed users were primarily the reason why Riko's death happened, ultimately Geto decided that these people were not worth saving, that these people should not exist in the world, and why they should be eliminated. Of course, just because the Star Religious group were the reason why Riko's death happened, that doesn't excuse what Geto is doing. Geto is still an evil person for going the path that he chose to do. While you can understand why he did the things he did and why he thinks the the way he thinks. Ultimately, the decisions he makes are just simply still evil. At the end of the day, he is still killing innocent people just because of his beliefs towards non-curse users. And it's not like all the decisions that he is making is only affecting him, it's also affecting the people around him, the people that were genuinely considering him a very good friend and people that really did care about him. And this was shown through Gojo, as now he has to fight somebody that he considered a best friend and somebody that he wanted to be with for a really long time. And it's really sad to see because these two were really good friends, and sadly their friendship ended because of certain situations that happened during their time in Jujutsu High. And that is how Riko's death completely changed Geto and made him go into a path of evil. And that's pretty much my entire video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.